What's cracking, guys? This is Julian and Ali, your geeks at Personal Finance Boss, here to talk about.
Actually, we agreed that the name was gonna come, right? Because you didn't like that name. That's what I'm gonna make an intro part before this to make
You
one.
need a name.
But
You can't just jump right into a topic.
Of course we are. So, what's the topic today?
Compound interest.
Why is it compound? Why is that our first topic?
Because it's the first thing you need to learn about
For what?
for personal finance.
There you
For
go.
getting out of the rat race. For making millions.
Well, yeah, maybe one day, but the point of this is really to start at the
Get a
foundation
base.
of everything and explain what compound interest is.
So what is it, Julian?
Well, the simplest way to put it is it's interest earned on interest.
Mhm.
Now, a simple way to illustrate it is, let's say you have $10. Let's say you have $100 invested at 1%. Every year you make $1.
So I have 101 at the end.
At the end of year one, you have $101.
Mm-hmm.
During the second year, if it were simple interest, you just make another $100.
So you just make another dollar.
You make another 1% on the $100. So
$100.
after 10 years, you'd still be making $1 of interest every year. Compound interest means that you make 1% on your principal plus the interest earned in the previous years. So if you have $100, after year one you have 101. After year two, you make 1% of 101, which makes 101 and 1 cent, right? Something like that. I know the dollar isn't very interesting, but that's the main idea of compound interest. So say you have 10% return on $100. After year one, you have 110. After year two, you have 121 and some change, and it goes on. So a way to calculate how long it would take to double your money is a rule of 72.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you explain it?
Well, the rule of 72 is quite simple, actually, Julian. You just take 72 divided by your interest rate, and that's the amount of time it takes to double your money.
Example?
So obviously, the higher the rate, the less time it takes to double your money.
And
so
the rule works for, plausible interest rates, not 72%, because if you make 72% in a year, your money's not going to double.
if you make 72% a year, you come talk to the boys at Personal Finance Boss, and we'll be investing right away, you know?
We'll be sending you our money.
No, but if you take let's say a really nice interest rate, let's say a rate of return of 10, it would take you about 7, a little over 7 years.
You can tell we're not really strong in math.
Yeah, of course,
Taking 10, yeah.
Well, my major is exercise science, so we don't really do a lot of math, but
Yeah, well, whatever.
yeah. And Julian always here, he uses a calculator all the time, so.
Yeah, so my brain's pretty much brain dead.
But anyway, around 7 years to double your money, so.
Yeah, and on average, the opinions vary, but the market makes about between 6 to 8% annually. So you want to double your money, it takes about 10 years ballpark every year if you invest in some low cost index fund in the market. But we'll get to that in a later episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I first heard about compound interest, that's when my interest for personal finance really took off. Because simple interest is nice, but no one ever talks to you about compound interest. And you don't really get to see it. You don't really get to...
It's not something tangible.
It's not tangible. Like, let's open up a compounding calculator just for fun to see what type of returns you make if you save a fixed amount of money every year. Or if you start with a fixed amount and then you let it grow for, let's say, 20 years. Or in our cases, we're in our young, low 20s, right? So how much would we have at contemporary retirement at 65 years old, which would be 45 years from now if we were 20, right?
Uh-huh.
So let's say that we start with $5,000 as initial savings.
All right.
So 5,000 there.
5K.
And then
how much are we going to contribute?
it's per year? Okay.
Per month, per week.
Let's say we contribute, let's say 200 a month.
200 a month?
200 a month, which makes...
And how many years are we saving for?
45 years.
45 years?
Until retirement, when we're 65, you have to choose the interest rate.
What rate do you want to put?
Let's go for a solid 8%. Because it makes it more interesting.
8%.
So,
if we look at this, if we start with 5,000 in initial savings, and we're contributing $200 every month, we're saving for 40 years, and we're at an interest rate...
45, because we're going to hit 65. Okay. Okay.
Let's assume we're saving for 40 years because I'm already 25, so I'll be retiring at 65. So if we do this, at the end I'll have saved $824,000.
Yeah. Now, what if we only did $2,400
of which $723,000 was interest.
There you go.
Which is the key. So at the end of the day, I only put in about $90,000 worth of my own money, and the rest was all interest.
Yeah. But if you take 5,000 and you put 8% on 5,000, it's pennies compared to the $723 of interest. Sorry, $1,000 of interest that we're talking about. So just this idea where you can save initial $5,000 or whatever. Let's put that 5,000 to zero.
Let's say you don't even have 5,000. Let's say you got $500.
Sure.
And you're earning minimum wage. You're earning a student bond. You say, hey, you know what, guys? I can only do 50 a month, and we're still saving for 40 years.
And that's assuming that you save 50 a month
for the rest of your life,
even when you're 45,
and earning millions. Of course.
Yeah. You know.
That still gives $187,000.
Yeah. So $500 initially plus $50 a month. After 40 years is going to give you $187,000. Of that, $163 was pure interest, which means
you only contributed $24,000.
Yeah,
which is nothing over 40 years.
Which means as you sleep, your money's working for you. You're making money without doing.
As you're on the can, your money is making money for you.
Yeah, and you don't need to actually be at work.
Exactly.
You could be at home, and you'd still be making a little bit of money. And obviously, the more money you put up front and the more money you contribute every year, the longer the compounding period or the higher the interest rate will all increase this amount. So if you're some finance whiz, or if you are a finance whiz to be, and you find a way to make 50% per year, could your calculator work with 50%?
Well, the thing is, 50% is so unrealistic, the calculator doesn't even do it.
Really? Okay. Well, kind of makes it boring. But, you can always dream.
We does. But even if we boost it up to 10%.
Yeah, from 8% to 10%, you might think it doesn't make a difference, but the differences can be huge. And an easy way to think about it is for all those homeowners out there, if you have a mortgage and your mortgage rate is 3% and you bump it up to 4%, your monthly payments can go up a couple $100, depending on the mortgage balance, obviously.
Well, look at this example. We were at $187,000 before. Just by boosting the rate, just by 2%, we're at $344,000. Yeah, so $345,000, and our contribution is still $24,000.
Of course, because the contribution never changes. The only thing is the interest earned. So the higher the rate, the more money you make. If you get that extra 1%, you can be making an extra, in our example, ballpark $50,000, $60,000,
no, 2%. 2% was $150,000.
Oh, damn.
$150K for 2%.
So 1% from 8 to 10%, 1% is about $75K. Yeah, and that's a tremendous amount.
And this is still considering we're only doing $50 a month.
$50, yeah, exactly.
$50 a month. So let's do a wilder example. Let's say we start with initial savings of $5,000.
To make it fun, let's just say zero initial savings.
Zero initial savings.
And we just do, let's say you're making.
Let's say $50 a day.
Sure. Why not? Why not?
$50 a day.
How much does that make in a year?
So. Let's look at this. So we're doing $50 a day for 40 years at 10%.
I'll do that. How much that is in a year? Just because daily amounts of money is really hard to work with. So that's okay. That's $18,250 a year. So if you're making $100,000 a year, and you're not crazy in expenses, you manage to save about 20% of your gross income. Comes down to $18,000 at the end of 40 years. How much money do we have, Alan?
We have $9.65 million.
And how much is our principal?
Our principal was maybe $500K?
That's about right, $600K.
$500K over 40 years though.
Yeah.
Not in one shot. And we generated $8.9 million in interest.
Yeah. So
people are saying,
we could pretty much end the podcast here. It's pretty much self-explanatory.
With a mic drop, obviously.
Yeah, but I won't drop that mic.
For sure. But even 10%, you're going to say, hey, guys, where the hell are you going to find 10% from? Where are you going to pull it up from?
Yeah, it's hard.
So we can even drop it to 5. And we're still at $2.3 million.
Yeah, but you notice the drop. Notice a drop from 8 to 2, right? So when people say look for low-cost investment vehicles, it really makes a difference. Because if you're investing, let's say, in a mutual fund, and the average return is 8 over 40 years, but they charge you a 2% management expense ratio, which brings down your annual return to 6%, that's 2%.
2% would cost you, if you were doing the 8 and 2% would cost you about $1 million in fees.
$1 million, in fees over the 40 years with the $50 a day as in our previous example, which is tremendous. That is a huge amount of money to be giving up to the bank.
Yeah, and what are they doing, honestly?
Yes, we will get into alternative options to mutual funds, which probably many of you know, in future episodes. But this first one is really to introduce the power of compounding and why we are so interested in personal finance and why everyone should be as interested as us in this topic, right? So what really got you started in personal finance?
Me? Well, honestly, this whole idea... Well, my actual thing was when I got my first iPhone, there was always a stock app on it.
Yeah.
And I used to...
For some reason, because if you look at stats, not that many people trade stocks.
Exactly. And
but somehow it was booted up on your phone.
I got interested in it. I used to click on it and used to look at it. I didn't really know what the numbers meant. I was 15 or so. But I'm like, Dad, how do I get into this? How do I... And he's like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that.
And you have to be 18.
And you have to be 18, of course. You have to be 18. But, once I turned 18, I'm like, I have some money. It's time to get into it. And slowly, I had some mutual funds. And slowly, experimenting with calculators, experimenting with stocks, reading up on stuff. You slowly get into it. And it's really, I find, first when you need to get in hands-on. You can't do this from afar. You need to get in.
There's two ways to learn. It's learn from your own mistakes or learn from other people's mistakes.
No, but you don't necessarily have to go in and saying, I need to put in $5,000. You can even go in with $100 and just seeing the interest pile up in your account.
Hopefully.
Just seeing that money grow with compound interest. I think that was the trigger for me, just seeing my money grow.
Yeah, when you invest in stocks though, it's compound interest isn't as obvious because you look at a stock. And, it's a reflection of a company, and if the company does well, the stock goes up. Company does poorly, the stock goes down. But, yes, if you look at it, just as this investment vehicle that makes a 7% return every year, then it's very interesting. But
well, you could look at it in terms of dividends and doing a reinvestment and then piling up over time. But really, compound interest is mutual funds, cash accounts. GICs are a big one where compound interest really piles on.
I have this thing against GICs for most scenarios, but sometimes they're adequate.
We will get to that at a future topic. I have some conflicting arguments on that, but no, this whole just getting into investing and just getting into personal finance in general, and it's really in the future, and now it's going to be a cornerstone of your life and how you progress through.
Yeah, you'd think so, right? But nowhere in school do they teach this. I'm doing a bachelor's in finance, and no one has ever told us, guys, maybe we'll have one class on compound interest and personal savings, because as you saw in the calculator example, the longer you save for using the rule of 72, the more time your money has to double. So if you start at 20, when you're in university, versus if you start at 35 or 40, you can be saying goodbye to, let's say, $4 million in a previous example.
Well, look, if we even do 5% starting with zero, instead, if we do 40 years, we're at 2.3 million at the end. Let's say we cut that to 20 years. We're only at 626,000.
Yeah. So
you're giving up $1.5 million for what?
So that's what, a threefold return?
Threefold return.
My math is really bad, but it's, I'm gonna say ballpark before every math figure I say.
Threefold return, and it's really you're losing a lot, and again, remember, the shorter time you have, if turmoil happens, if this happens, you don't know what's gonna happen. That 20 years, maybe 3 years may be bad. Yeah. Out of 40, though, if 3 are bad, 37 years is still better than 20 earning and compounding.
The stock market is a winning game over long periods of time. If you're going to invest for 4 years, I can't say if you're going to make money, and no one can say if you're going to make money. Because people try to predict the stock market, but there are so many things that influence it. It just makes it impossible.
Well,
we're talking about stocks. There are a couple other investment vehicles that exist out there.
There's a lot of investment vehicles.
Yeah. A lot of them are market linked and some of them aren't. But there's a lot, and we're going to get into them. But this episode is really to set the floor.
And come to think of it, for you're in finance. I'm in sciences. There's not even mention about personal finance in our field. We're so out of sync
Well, of course. I'm just saying it from my point of view because I'm in finance.
But think about it for you. You're in finance, and they're not even teaching it for you guys.
Exactly.
And think about all the other people that are in other programs, or they may not even be in school. They don't even have access to this kind of knowledge. Yeah.
They graduate. They're making a hefty amount of money, but they don't know anything about personal finance. They walk into a bank. We'll get to that in the future, but you pretty much can get screwed out of your money in banks because the way the banking system works here in Canada, it's a conflict of interest between the employees and the customer. We'll get to that. But personal finance is one of the most important things that everyone should know about. You don't need to know how to trade stocks. You don't need to know how to look at moving averages and reading graphs and looking at balance sheets. That's not what we're saying. You need to know a minimal amount about investment vehicles and about how money works, and that's why we're here. We're here to teach it to you because honestly, it's not that confusing, it's not that hard, and it doesn't take that long. Because money is money. It's part of the system. We're going to talk about the system in depth. I think that's what I'd like to do because the way everything is structured is for you to become an employee, and no one wants you to know about personal finance because if you did, you'd be retiring 20 years sooner. And that's not good for the workforce. That's not good for taxes. That's not good for the pension plan. That's not good for anything.
But it is good for you.
It's good for you.
It's very good for you.
Your kids and your grandkids.
And there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of innovation. A lot of money to be made. For sure. There's a lot of good
if
stuff
you have the proper information.
For sure, of course.
So, in short, compound interest. You make interest on interest. The longer you save for, the more money you make. Use the rule of 72 to get a quick approximation about how long it'll take for your money to double.
But 72 divided by your rate is the time it takes for your money to double in years.
Yeah. So that's 10%, 72 years, 72 divided by 10.
7.2 years. Yeah.
Done.
About 7.5 years, even if you want to round it.
Yeah.
If you want to round it. 7.5. Easy number.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So stay tuned for the next episode where we will get into our next topic, which is still not determined yet. But once we know it, we're going to talk about it for sure. And I'm sure it's going to be very interesting if you found this one interesting on compound interest. Any last words, Tyler?
I'm good. I think you hit everything.
Perfect. See you next time, guys.